Great stuff. Hello, everybody. It's Saturday evening. Welcome to the Holding Cell. I'm Aisling Keogh, and I'm coming to you live from my kitchen. First of all, I want to say thanks to Simon and Roz for having me along. I have about 20 minutes to redo some poems and some short fiction. So I'm going to start with this fairly recent one called Dad in Strange Times. It's a poem. Usually, it begins with an apology. I'm sorry, love. I can't hear you. I'll get your mother. And I hear the shuffling sounds of the receiver being passed from palm to palm. This week, he tells me he can't hear me very well, but wants to know how I am, and are the kids okay? Do they miss school and their friends? And what am I going to do about work? And yes, he's okay, still getting out for his walk every day, but he doesn't stop to talk to people. And if he needs anything from the shop, he wears gloves and uses the gel man makes him carry in his pocket. And I praise his efforts to keep them safe, because I can't do anything else from this distance. Right, he says, as if a problem had been solved. I'll get your man. And then he says those two words that leave me undone. God bless. For as long as I've known him, my father hasn't believed in a God, and those words clatter, hang between us, until my undeaf ears hear them properly. I love you, Dad, I say. Me too. Here's your mother. Fairly recent one there. Next thing I have for you is a short story. It's called Ethereal, and it was published a few years back in a New Ulster, so thanks to them for that. I lie with my eyes closed, wishing for sleep. The morphine they've given me has taken away the pain, but it has done nothing for the interminable itch underneath the dressings on my wounds. I see elephants and a tangerine sunset, and women in red and gold saris sweeping past me on bicycles. And I see white walls, polished linoleum, and masked up strangers waiting to tend to me. And I don't know if any of it is or ever was real. I see my grandmother sitting in her fireside chair in the old house, and I am 3 years old again, walking towards the fire burning in the hearth, with my hand outstretched, wanting to touch the flames. I was always fascinated by fire. As a child, I read about the great fires of London, New York, Toronto, and Vancouver, enthralled by their power to transform and destroy. At 8 years old, I wanted to know all there was to know about spontaneous human combustion. It was my holy grail. The morphine makes it difficult to recall, but I remember unpacking the car and dragging the kit to a clearing in the woods, our special place. Almost 30 years ago, I lost a bet to my college roommate, a stupid juvenile wager about how much alcohol I could drink. My forfeit was that I must join the university's hill walking club. On the day of my first hike, I was improperly dressed in jeans, runners, and a light raincoat. My hangover was such that I was fighting the urge to vomit. A tall, red-haired stranger with woolly socks and waterproofs fell in to step beside me and laughed when he saw my grey-green pallor. He poured tea from a yellow thermos and shared it with me when the group picnicked in the clearing. He teased me about my delicate state and had the unusual effect of making me laugh at myself. I had no idea where he was gone. John left no note that morning, but I was sure he would be here. I gathered wood, made a campfire, and waited for him to arrive. A tightness across my chest made my breathing shallow. In the raw November air, it made a satisfying rasping sound to accompany the snap of the leaves and twigs underfoot. Frozen and breathless with expectation, I lit the fire, and while I did, I allowed my mind to wander back to a street in India where I thought I'd found what I was seeking. It was September of 1987. John and I were travelling through the state of Rajasthan in western India when we happened upon a gathering of thousands in a relatively small village whose name I can no longer recall. It was a strange thing. Some of the crowd were singing and chanting, while others were wailing. Tears flowed freely down their cheeks. The atmosphere was tense, negatively charged. The crowd was apprehensive and uneasy. And then I saw her, a woman on fire. Her arms were raised, swaying in the air. Her shape was silhouetted against the flames that danced a circle around her. Together they contrived to make an improbable ballet. On my 8th birthday, grandmother threw a party. I still bear the scars along my hairline. I remember being overwhelmed by the urge to touch 8 tiny flames and leaned so close that my hair caught fire when I stretched to blow out the candles on my cake. The smell of burning hair is as pungent as it is unmistakable. Its stench pervades the memory of my 8th birthday and of the burning woman in India. The crowd shrieked at the apparent horror of the spectacle, but the burning woman herself was silent. It was years later I learnt that when burning flesh has melted through to bone, all of the nerve endings that sense pain are destroyed. By the time I saw her, the woman could no longer feel. She was no longer in her physical body. She was a ball of fire, a sun beyond pain. Consumed by flames and silence, I watched her, twirling, then writhing, then still. I have always loved the unpredictability of fire, how it can ignite, take over, and destroy within seconds. Part of my fascination with spontaneous human combustion was that all of this power comes from inside a person. It is their own biochemical reactions that create a charge powerful enough to destroy them. To me, this woman was a vision of power, a superhero, omnipotent in a way I dreamed of being. We returned to our hostel, and while John slept that night, I lay awake and replayed the scene over and over in my mind, euphoric and terrified in equal measure. I hear footsteps on linoleum and hushed voices talking about the possibility of infection. The masked strangers loosen my dressings and peer at my wounds, agree it's a waiting game, and shuffle off, leaving me alone again. Alone except for my grandmother, who cautions me to stay away from fire. No, Jilly, too close. She wags her finger at my 3-year-old self and smiles, and I smile back at her through the morphine and the itch and the noise of the white coats and their polished shoes. In November, dusk creeps in early. I watched the sky change and admired the pinks and reds and golds of the evening in all its lustre. Seating on a fold-up stool beside the fire, I listened to the crackle of burning wood, wrapped my arms around my knees, and rocked myself backward and forward. I went to the wood because I wanted to see John. I was sure he would be there. He always came when I needed him. He would touch me, hold my hand, stroke my face, mumble promises. With him my boiling blood cooled. I was soothed by his presence. He could make the rest of the world disappear. But I was tired of waiting and glowered at the flames, and for the briefest of moments I saw John's face, flushed red and orange in dancing firelight. My mind filled with muttering people dressed in black and shaking my hand, and I struggled to recall another fire, John's funeral pyre. I searched out my phone and scrolled down as far as John's name and pressed the call button. I waited for it to ring, but it didn't. Instead, a stranger's voice told me that the number was not in service, that my love has already burned. And so I keened my loss all over again. I mourned as I will do tomorrow and the day after, when lucid moments make it possible to see the shattered pieces of my life in their entirety. A man with a kind smile and a suit and shiny shoes spoke to John and I in a language I did not understand. The word sounded foreign to me. Alzheimer's. More men in suits, some brisk and businesslike, some kind. Tablets that didn't work and more tablets that did. Eventually the haze receded long enough for me to understand that old age had come early for me. Not only do I hate the disease, I hate the loneliness. Other diseases have a well-worn, predictable path. A cancer diagnosis comes with oncology appointments, a treatment plan, chemotherapy, hope. However futile, I would have preferred the dream of a cure. I hate my health visitor with her cardigans, her nunnish shoes, and her preoccupation with when I last washed and what I have or have not eaten today. I hate that one day she and my daughter will have to agree I can no longer care for myself. I hate knowing that day is not far away. I can still remember the way grandmother's face creased when she smiled, and the ethereal woman on the street in India, and the way John's thick auburn curls arranged themselves on the pillow when he slept beside me. These are the things I know, certainly, and they are not enough. I am an unreliable witness to my own life. Like the morphine, this disease offers only the briefest moments of clarity. Through the smallest of windows, I can see it from the outside, looking in. I see a grandmother, her daughter, and her granddaughter sitting beside the fire. Its mantle is decorated with tinsel and holly. The twinkling lights on the Christmas tree and the flames on the hearth bathe the scene in a warm light. I watch as my granddaughter raises her arms and asks to sit on my knee, and I regard her with absolute indifference, not because I do not love her, but because I am no longer there. I am somewhere else, a spectre, a mere ghost of my former self. I tried to calm myself, focus, think of something else, the sea, sounds from a rainforest. I could not conjure them. My mind refused to focus on anything higher than the mundane, and I became more desperate and frustrated because I could not remember where John said he was going this morning, or whether or not I had turned off the gas hob, or if I'd taken the yellow tablet today. The yellow one is supposed to help my memory. The forest fire roared, and I rocked and seethed at the unjust hand life had dealt me. I spat and hissed like the flames that burned, filled with resentment of what is yet to come. Dependence, helplessness, death. Even the beauty of a silver forest at dusk could not move me beyond my despair. I gave up on finding comfort and ceased my rocking. Instead, I sat perfectly still on the ground and grieved for a version of myself that was not yet dead. There's a name for it, for the custom of widows sacrificing themselves on the funeral pyre of their deceased husbands. That burning woman on the street in India was a sati. Fire transformed her. By its power, she became a deity in the eyes of her fellow villagers, a goddess to be worshipped and bestowed with gifts. With my eyes screwed tightly shut, I conjured her dancing in flames. Pale and silent, she opened her eyes and smiled like some sort of beatified saint. Then she lifted her arms and beckoned me, whispered promises, called me into her embrace. She whispered promises, and I believed I too could shine, eternal like the sun. I clambered to my feet and began to search out the petrol can I had thrown in the near distance. I unscrewed the cap. With dizzy delight, I poured petrol on the campfire and watched it roar to life. Transfixed, I allowed the can to drip the precious liquid onto the ground, my shoes, my jeans and jacket. I stood with arms outstretched and waited for the flames to take me to be with him. Okay, I've got another short piece of flash fiction and a poem left to go. I'll just take a quick drink before I start this. This piece of flash is called Deliberate Self-Harm. There's always a moment you keep going back to. A moment that replays in your head, insists its inherent pain has release. And once you've given in and committed to the act of hurting yourself, relief washes over you in the kind of waves that crashed off Dunleary Pier during Storm Clodagh or Desmond or Eva or Frank. For me, that moment was in a festival tent in the arse end of Laois. End of the night encore, the crowd were screeching and the band's drummer was going wild, working some blast beats that drove the night to the edge of insanity. Speakers crackled feedback ready to explode, and a figure in a blue hoodie crashed into my line of vision, stopped and stared. Blonde, blue-eyed, all teeth and smiles. I noticed all of that first because I wasn't used to being looked on or smiled upon by anything so godlike. Only then did I recognize her. Two thoughts. Fuck, and what the hell is she doing here? But she was smiling and kissing my cheek hello as if she was really actually glad to see me. 2 minutes of fraught conversation, us awkward as a couple of teens fumbling over our words and not each other. Festivals and free love my arse. Then she plodded off through swampy fields and the drums beat a perfect rhythm for banging my head off a wall, a would-be cure for the pain of seeing her walk away again. And I'm used to it now, as much as I'll ever be. But it has to go somewhere, else all that I can hear, see, touch, taste gets crazy whipped up together and I can't function because I'm so freaking overloaded. There's blood rushing in my ears and my skin can't tell if it's hot or cold. I'm goosebumps and burning up. I'm panic buying and pulling down the shades and I have to find a way out before I get locked in at the close of business. So I go, to what I know works. Tap a screen a few times, hit play, feel the drumbeat, my heartbeat, the gnawing inside my soul, and crest the wave of a melody. And the cold white fear and the red edge of pain mix, blend, become a soft pink love song that I bleed for 3 minutes and 40 seconds in a deliberate ritual exorcism of that pain. And I play it over and over. And last up, we have my gardening poem, In the Garden. It's my gardening poem. It's not a slur on gardening. It's more of a reflection on me. Okay. I don't care that the grass grows wild. In fact, I prefer it. And never have I ever pruned or planted a damn thing. I like it wild. There are other good reasons to spend time on my knees, and neither gardening nor praying help me find my bliss. The whiff from a lavender bush vibrating with the busyness of bees is certainly pleasant, but I've long since understood I will not have the garden, and the garden will not have me in the mid-years of my life. Friends prefer clippings, cuttings, pottings, instructions, try to force me out to where 40-something women should be, when I have watered and tended enough. And that's it. It was a very quick few minutes in my world. I hope it was in yours too. Thanks for listening. Thank you to Roz and Simon for having me along again. There's loads more coming up in the holding cell in the next few days and weeks. So keep an eye on their Facebook page and Twitter feed for details. And again, thanks a million. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going to sign off now. Bye-bye.